Huge news today. Fidelity and Canary Capital's proposed HBAR, Solana, and XRP ETFs just appeared on a familiar name that we've been talking about for months on this channel, the DTCC's listing system. At the same time, the first ever Spot XRP ETF, the REX-Osprey fund, is launching today. This isn't just noise, it's proof that the rails for mass adoption are being laid right in front of us. This is going to be a good one. What is up, everybody? Solomon here. Super excited to be with you all today. What happened on September 11th? Bloomberg confirmed the filings, and this is in alignment with pretty much this entire week, which has been just crazy to witness from an adoption standpoint. Fidelity's Solana ETF, Canary Capital's XRP ETF, and Canary Capital's HBAR ETF. All three of these showed up on the DTCC's exchange traded funds active and pre-launch page. Now, Bloomberg's odds for the XRP ETF, XRP and Solana ETFs being approved, sitting at about 95% right now. I believe HBAR is sitting at about 90%. Remember, the SEC's final deadline to rule on Solana and XRP is still coming, I believe, in October and November. Meanwhile, the REX-Osprey Spot XRP ETF is supposed to be going live today, giving retail and institutional investors regulated brokerage account exposure to XRP itself. Now, what the DTCC's listing of these pre-approved, pre-SEC approved ETFs means, it is standard practice for DTCC to add securities to the NSCC security eligibility file in prep for the launch of a new ETF to the market. Appearing on this list is not indicative of any outcome for any standing regulatory or other approval processes. So this doesn't mean that the ETFs are automatically approved. But here's the kicker. This is exactly what happened in Q4 2023 before the Bitcoin spot ETFs went live. They appeared in DTCC's system first, and weeks later, the SEC signed off. So the patent connection here that we talked about before, I'm going to hop into in a second, but obviously DTCC doing their due diligence and in preparation of some of these ETFs going live. This is a really long list. If you guys are interested enough to look into this yourselves, you can, do some targeted searches on here. This is the Canary HBAR ETF, and yeah, but pretty cool to see populated on, one of the entities that I've been talking about on this channel for quite some time. So I want to get into some of the stuff we've talked about this week, and then just in the very, very recent past as well. Some of the patents that we've dug up on DTCC have been very interesting. First and foremost, this is back in, I think, late April. DTCC, for those that are not aware, acquired a company called SEC Currency. It's SEC, I think it's two C's with currency. And essentially this patent that we broke down and published here, and you can go back. I did the video on YouTube here, and then through Genfinity, we posted a breakdown of it. They're literally talking about, tokenizing quadrillions in real world assets with centralized control, maintaining centralized control. It says, obviously, DTCC moving 3.7 quadrillion. The patent essentially shows, that DTCC aims to be blockchain agnostic, but build private / consortium DLTs, but interoperate across the public networks. They want to be able to manage rights dynamically, to be able to delegate responsibilities and authority per wallet for different wallets, prepare for quantum security threats. And I think this is just pretty interesting. It talks about the current invention is already able to be implemented with Bitcoin, Ethereum, Hashgraph, Binance, Flowtron, Tezos, Cosmos, XRPL, et cetera, et cetera. There's another patent out there with DTCC also. But, digging up these multiple DTCC patents, they're not random. They describe crypto, even this past week. I think just yesterday I did that deep dive into the Wells Fargo patent that is like Yeah, obviously not set in stone yet, but certainly preparatory in a way that talks about crypto trust scores, like literally putting a trust score, like almost like a credit score on our wallets. Between that, DTCC, the Nasdaq stuff this week, Nasdaq filing with the SEC. This is just Monday to tokenize the stock market, to have a regular version of the stock market, and then or to have regular versions of assets, digital assets, as Apple stocks and all these other different securities are right now, and then have tokenized versions of them. But crypto trust scores, tokenized security settlement frameworks, instant settlement models for digital assets. These patents and all of kind of the stuff that we've seen recently show the design of like this new financial system, these new rails. Even the risk mitigation framework stuff that we've been talking about on this channel that I found from the Global Blockchain Business Council, which literally has DTCC sitting as one of the participants in phase one, alongside Euroclear and Clearstream and the World Bank observing, and Hedera, XRPL, Avalanche, Cardano, Chainlink, and Canton Network, which I've talked about in phase two. They're certainly not, I think one of the fears whether they were going to kind of gatekeep the public networks out, but they very obviously are preparing kind of for like the medium to long term here with public network liquidity and things like that. I just think that they realize the cat's out of the bag. They can't really stop the tech. Private networks, yeah, from a technology standpoint are great, but they're still siloing themselves, and they would still silo the liquidity, and they would still essentially not be able to utilize the technology in a way that they, kind of would want to kind of at full scale here, as all these assets become tokenized. Because really, it's not about just tokenizing these assets. It's about what do you do with them after they're tokenized, and the liquidity and all the other things that you can do with them once they're tokenized is kind of the whole point. Together, it's proof that DTCC is not just dabbling in crypto. Wells Fargo is not just dabbling in crypto. The Nasdaq is not just dabbling in crypto. The World Bank, European Central Bank, all of the central banks across the entire world, all of the financial market providers. I just saw a tweet yesterday. BlackRock wants to tokenize stocks and all this other stuff. That was months ago, and that's just regurgitated yesterday. Of course, BlackRock wants to tokenize things. I mean, BlackRock has already has multiple funds that have been tokenized. Securitize has tokenized BlackRock funds on the, managed by some of the XDC network stuff. A long time ago. BlackRock funds are tokenized through Archax right now and living on Hedera. We just saw that announcement on Thursday about pooled baskets of funds. And I have a really interesting kind of portion of this, and I wanted to go through with you guys. And I want to try to keep this 10 minutes because I have a tendency to get really excited about this stuff and ramble. Tokenizer, if you do not follow on X, easily one of the best follows, on X from, an OG/researcher standpoint. The guy does his due diligence. And if you guys, watched the video yesterday, Archax announced pooled tokens on Hedera, first on Hedera. And you have like Aberdeen funds, State Street funds, BlackRock funds. You can have cryptocurrency. You can have all sorts of asset classes. I talked about it yesterday, but I don't think it did it justice of just how big this is, what we're actually looking at here, what this represents for what's about to occur across the board to the entire world as crypto goes mainstream. And I'm not saying we get there tomorrow, but we are damn close. All right, so the Archax pooled tokens open more doors than you think. Essentially, we now have regulated tokenized ETFs. This is from Tokenizer's standpoint. Pooled tokens bring forth the potential to birth new baskets of assets consisting of digital assets alongside traditional financial assets, real world assets, et cetera, et cetera. Below, he's drawn up a few examples that all vary by exposure and volatility. Now, these aren't any official volatility things or anything, but he's giving you guys an example of what, and this is a singular token. So here's, let's say rectangle 1, BlackRock, State Street, imagine having one token, and within that one token, 20% of that token is filled with BlackRock funds. The other 25% of that token is filled with State Street funds. The other 25 is filled with Aberdeen funds, and the other 30% is in HBAR. And that's all not wrapped, but it's all combined up into this one token, and you just proportionately divvy out what you want to go in your fund, in your pooled basket of investment assets or whatever it may be. I mean, then you've got another one split between HBAR and Aberdeen, another one split between XTC, uh, HBAR, Stellar, BlackRock, Legal and General, another one pulled between Stellar, XTC, Legal and General, BlackRock, and the final one is BlackRock, HBAR, XTC, Stellar, XRP, and State. I mean, that's literally the future that we're going to. You talk about like, we talk about like programmable finance and things like that, and just automating and, for the best liquidity and the best yield and all this other stuff. But I mean, you're going to have AI agents that are going to be essentially creating optimized strategies for each individual that could present optimized strategies for each individual person in the entire world. Because which is just like fascinating where this is going to go, because every single one of us, I mean, I think the stupidest tweets that I ever see on Twitter and ever see people asking on YouTube is, how much crypto do you need? Or how much X, Y, and Z do you need? Or how much whatever? And it's a dumb, loaded question, because every single person's financial situation in the entire world is totally different than one another. So everybody's risk tolerance is going to be different. Everybody's knowledge base on these assets is going to be different. And what I think is interesting is, just like the educational system, I think is going to be totally upended by agentic AI, and the way that we can actually educate children on a case-by-case basis and not just pull them into one gigantic batch of, bullshit. I think it's the same way with investments and democratizing the financial system. And I think that it's going to be really interesting to see new business models spun out of the back end of this technology, and to see what's going to be possible for financial empowerment of individual people, having access into assets and asset classes that traditionally they just never had access to, either A, from a knowledge standpoint, or B, from a financial access standpoint. All that stuff's going to be abstracted away, and we are literally just starting to scratch the surface of what is possible. So from XRP, Solana, and HBAR ETFs, waiting to be approved, but now listed on the DTCC active and pre-launch exchange traded funds site. And from what we saw with the Nasdaq this past week, and what we see with all the central banks across the entire world, you can look at these ecosystems that are just absolutely destroying it. From like, and I brought this up before. This is Algorand and their like updates and everything, and I'll take it with a grain of salt. Genfinity has a media relationship with Algorand Foundation. But again, I brought this up about XDC before. I'll bring it up about any of these ecosystems, XRP, anybody. They all have really impressive, like, you look back at what's been going on the past 30 days, the past 60 days in crypto for any of these networks, and go back 5 years and look and see what stuff was being announced 5 years ago. We are night and day as far as how much further and how much more mature this space is. I did an interview last week with Swarm Markets on out of the Hedera ecosystem. If you want to check that out, feel free. It's pretty interesting. Multi-asset RWAs, owning stocks, bonds, and gold on Hedera. Again, not financial advice. I do not have a relationship with the Hedera Foundation, but still did the interview anyways. And then Kaio, which is another one, which I think was the individual was from Nomura, which is one of the biggest banking entities. You can find that interview as well from last week. We also did a next gen gaming interview yesterday. This had cross-chain participation from XDC Network, HBAR, and XRP. So Zertmon from XRP, Ludik, and I'm probably mispronouncing that, and apologies, from HBAR, and XDC and HBAR Circle of Games. And then for those of you guys that are more interested in kind of the tech standpoint, doing the Hello Future Origins, which was part one of 3 $550,000 hackathon ramp down out of Hedera. Monday, this will be a live stream. And there's going to be a lot of really cool use cases, all the way from sustainability to OG builders to real world assets to, et cetera, et cetera. I think there's 12 winners overall in this. So I'm excited about that podcast as well. But anyways, you can check out the DTCC stuff on genfinity.io. And I'm going to ask again, if you guys want to see interviews, follow at genfinity.io and start tagging us and requesting us to reach out to your favorite projects and do interviews, or even do deep dives. I'm pretty decent at deep dives still. Maybe I'm a little bit rusty at it, but I can still find stuff like this every once in a while. start requesting some stuff. And yeah, awesome to see HBAR, Solana, and XRP pre-approved ETFs on DTCC. I will talk to you guys when I talk to you. Have a blessed weekend. Bye.